Hi there. In my previous video, we did an introduction to table of values in Scratch. So I just thought I'd take you through a little more details in this particular video with an arithmetic type sequence. So something where we're going to be adding and subtracting. So that's where we're just going to be making some changes. And how does that look like then in my output? So let's take a look at our set of code here. This is what we had before. So just a quick reminder, you click on the green flag. We have whatever table of values that exists already here is going to be reset. So we're starting from scratch, okay, pardon the pun. Then we're going to set number to 1. So that's our variable to 1. So that's where we're going to start. Then we have a repeat block here, and we've repeated this 10 times. You can choose changes to how many times you would like to be displayed over here. So it says add number, so the variable number, and right now that number is 1, to the table of values. And all that really means is it's not the operation of adding, it's really just displaying. So we're displaying the number to our table of values, which is why you'll see your number 1 right here, because that is our first value that's entered in the table of values. Then it says change that number, so that number, which is 1 currently, by 1, which means the operation of adding one more value. So that's why your second term will be 2. Now we go back in the repeat block again. So we don't go out here, we're back in here. So we're now going to go through this process. Our number is now 2. That's our value for our number. Added to the table of values to displayed, which is right here. So the number 2. Great. Now it's saying change that value by 1 again. So now we have 3. So going into this loop, it's now saying, now display this 3 into here, which is why we see 3. And then adding one more is going to be 4, display it, to add by 1, display it, and so on. You can change the order of this, and we may do that with it by maybe it's in this video or in another video, and that just changes things a little bit in the order of that things happen. So don't forget, in the sequence, whatever comes first happens first. Okay, so what I like to do now is, okay, this is great for when we're changing our value by 1, so we're adding 1 every time. What if we were to add 2? So you can now anticipate, you can have this conversation with your students. What should our output values be if we now change our number by 2 instead? So let's do that. Click on 2. And because when I click on the red, on this green flag, it's going to reset. And then we still have that first value as being 1. It's going to be adding 1 here. 1 is still going to be that first value. So keep that in mind, because that is going to become important. And then changing that value by 2 this time. And by changing by 2, they mean adding 2 to each value. So let's click on the green flag. So here we have it. Our first term is 1 as we expected. We took that 1 and they added 2. So now we have 3. Taking that value, add 2, you have 5. So you have this constant common difference of 2 as we increase here for every value. So you can come up with this pattern of what it looks like and then determine, well, what would be the 20th term, 50th term, 1000th term, just using this pattern. Let's go back to our code for a moment. Instead of adding 2, let's say we wanted to go down, if we want to subtract. So if we want to subtract, all you have to do is change our value, not by increasing by a positive number, but by a negative number. Let's start off with something like -1, just to see this relationship really quickly. So I'm going to put -1 in here. Click on the green flag, and let's take a look. So 1 is still always set to be start off as our first value. Then we have taken that number 1, we're going to display it. 1 is displayed. Then change that value by -1. So 1 take away 1 gives you 0. Next, this line, going back in the loop, this is now display this value, and so on and so on. So you can see we're decreasing by 1 every time. That's our common difference. Awesome. Same idea now if we were to decrease this by, let's say, -5, green flag. And again, you'll see this pattern and you can go through and see how you have a common difference of -5 every time. So I wanted to show you how you can change the code in here to do that. And just one little element to this as well. So you don't always have to start with 1, which is why I've been emphasizing that, oh, look it, we're setting our number to 1, which is why you see 1 here. What if you wanted our first number to be 10? No problem. So now anticipate what the outcome is going to be. If we have 10 as our starting value going into this loop, we're displaying that value. So for number 1, so for our first term should be 10. And if we're subtracting, we're changing that number by -5, then we would anticipate for number 2, so our second term, to be 5. 0, -5, -10, and so on. Let's try it. Let's try it. Test our code. There we go. So 10 being our first value, subtracting that by 5, subtracting that by 5, and continuing with that common difference of -5 just like before, but we just happen to have a different starting value. So this is where I just want to show you in how Scratch you can take it a little bit further, change what your first initial value is, change the pattern of what you're adding and subtracting by, and then have the outcome in your table of values. Again, having great conversations as in terms of anticipation as to what the table could look like, and then now even using that pattern and anticipating what values are going to be down the road for later larger values. Okay, so I hope this helps you take that step to the next further in using Scratch.